What the freak?
Strangers on a Delta flight become friends. Talk about the friendly skies. Two strangers who met on a Delta flight were cited for inter-passenger turbulence. The flight was heading from the City of Angels to Motown, and the two passengers, a 28-year-old man and a 48-year-old woman, were connecting on separate flights. Apparently, the two decided to connect with each other before reaching Detroit. Looks like the woman was in the middle of putting the man's tray table in the upright position while the two were in their seats. For some reason, the other passengers around them weren't so keen on the idea. Both were issued citations, and the investigation was handed over to the FBI. The two new besties are not expected to be criminally charged, but will most likely just have to pay up to $800 in fines. Lucky for these two, they could have been some strangers in danger on United. What happens in the air stays in the air, most of the time. Airbus plane engine falls apart over the Atlantic. An Air France flight en route from Paris to Los Angeles was forced to make a slight detour when one of its engines disintegrated over the Atlantic on Saturday. The Airbus A380 was just east of Greenland carrying 496 passengers and 24 crew members when one of its engines experienced a serious failure. According to passengers, there was a loud boom and then a lot of shaking. Luckily, the fast-acting pilots quickly shut the engine down and were able to stabilize the plane in under 30 seconds. The plane flew for about an hour on 3 engines before arriving at Goose Bay Airport in eastern Canada. 2 777s were eventually sent from Montreal to pick up the passengers and take them the rest of the way to LA. The cause of the engine failure is still unknown and currently being investigated.
Well, that's one way to get off first. A teenage airline passenger was taken to the hospital for mental health treatment after he jumped out of a plane emergency exit door. The 17-year-old boy bailed just minutes after Copa Airlines Flight 208 from Panama City landed at San Francisco on Tuesday. The boy, who's a U.S. citizen and was traveling by himself, then slid down the Boeing 737's wing and ran onto the runway, where he was held by some construction workers until the cops showed up. According to reports, the boy seemed stressed out on the flight and had been acting fidgety. The airline said he moved so fast that he was gone before any of the crew could react. Back on board, a crew member blocked the door until the plane made it safely to the gate. The plane was on the tarmac for about an hour, but no one was injured in the incident and no other flights were affected. If this takes off, launch pads could be a thing of the past. This is the largest plane in the world, but it has yet to take flight, and it's not a passenger plane. So what exactly does it do? The Stratolaunch plane is comprised of 2 twin fuselages, massive wings, and is carried by 6 Boeing 747 engines. With its 117-meter wingspan, the aircraft is wider than a football field. It's designed to carry spacebound rockets, with a payload of up to 275 tons. The Stratolaunch commences takeoff with a rocket attached to its belly. With no payload, the plane weighs around 250 tons. With fuel and a fully loaded rocket, the plane can fly with a maximum takeoff weight of 650 tons. For scale, that's around the same weight as a commercial Airbus A380, carrying 550 passengers. The Stratolaunch is manned by a 3-person crew in the right fuselage, including a pilot, co-pilot, and a flight engineer. The left fuselage cockpit is designed to remain empty and is unpressurized. The rocket is released after the plane reaches 35,000 feet. The rocket then fires its own engine and travels towards its orbit. The plane is designed for air rocket launches in low Earth orbit conditions to become a routine commute. The Stratolaunch is currently undergoing fuel tests and is expected to make its first launch in 2019. Phew, that was close. A small private jet miraculously survived after it was flipped over and plunged 10,000 feet. The cause? Getting caught in turbulence from a passing super jumbo jet. At around 8:40 a.m. on January 7th, the Bombardier Challenger 604, with 9 passengers on board, was flying over the Arabian Sea, headed from the Maldives to Abu Dhabi. That's when it encountered an Emirates Airbus A380 en route from Dubai to Sydney. As the private jet flew underneath the double-decker Airbus, it was hit by the much larger plane's wake turbulence. The turbulence flipped the small jet over 5 times, subjecting those inside to strong G-forces and injuring several. The crew used raw muscle force to manually stabilize the jet, restart the engines, and divert the flight to Oman for an emergency landing. Several passengers were taken to hospital, one with serious injuries. The private jet, operated by German carrier MHS Aviation, suffered such extensive damage that it had to be written off. Germany's Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accident Investigation is leading a probe into the incident.